This is Medical Device Legal News. Today is August 22nd, 2023. I'm Sam Bernstein. On August 17th, the Department of Justice announced that Craig Lovelace pled guilty to defrauding Medicare and Medicaid of over $11.4 million in connection with a durable medical equipment fraud scheme. Lovelace, through his company Advanced Medical Equipment, allegedly billed Medicare and Medicaid for medically unnecessary DME, including for equipment that was not delivered, that was not ordered, where the supporting documentation was fabricated, and allegedly where provider signatures were forged. Lovelace faces up to 10 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to twice the gain to Lovelace or loss to victims. In a similar case, on August 16th, Anthony Caracciolo was sentenced to 5 years of imprisonment for conspiring to defraud the Medicare program and for illegally possessing an automatic weapon as a convicted felon. Caracciolo allegedly paid and received kickbacks in connection with illegally buying and selling fabricated signed orders for durable medical equipment, such as leg, arm, and back braces, and allegedly filed fraudulent Medicare claims for more than $11 million. Allegedly, the ordering physicians never actually signed or authorized these orders and were unaware that their names and identities were being used in connection with the fraud scheme. Caracciolo was also sentenced to 3 years of supervised release, ordered to pay restitution of $5.6 million to the Medicare program, in order to forfeit $2.4 million, including his Florida residence. These cases are yet additional examples of the DOJ's continued fraud enforcement activities in the durable medical equipment space. As I've mentioned in prior weeks, when medical device companies engage sales and marketing companies, they should conduct applicable due diligence to ensure that such companies are not engaged in inappropriate or illegal activities, including the activities described in these cases. On August 15th, the FDA published final guidance for institutional review boards, clinical investigators, and sponsors regarding the FDA's informed consent requirements for clinical investigations. The FDA is still in the process of harmonizing its regulations to comply with the 2018 Common Rule updates, and accordingly, the guidance provides that it may be updated to account for resulting changes. The guidance also provides that in circumstances where there are overlapping regulatory regimes, such as research that is also subject to regulation by HHS because it is conducted or supported by HHS, the guidance provides that the regulations that afford greater protections to human subjects should be followed. As you're aware, the FDA's guidance documents do not establish legally enforceable responsibilities unless specific regulatory or statutory requirements are cited, and such guidance, if and when finalized, instead describes the agency's current thinking on a topic and should only be viewed as recommendations. The guidance addresses common misconceptions regarding clinical research and informed consent, including misconception that informed consent is merely signing an informed consent document. Instead, the FDA views informed consent as a process of informing a subject regarding a study, providing them with an opportunity to ask questions, providing them with an opportunity to decide whether to participate in an environment that minimizes coercion and undue influence, as well as obtaining the subject's agreement to participate in the study. The FDA also views informed consent as a continuing process that continues throughout the trial. Subject to certain limitations, investigators involved in FDA-regulated human subject research must obtain informed consent from subjects or their authorized representatives. Informed consents cannot include exculpatory language that waives subjects' legal rights or otherwise releases or appears to release the investigator, sponsor, institution, or their agents from their own negligence. Moreover, statements that claim the study product is safe or effective for the purposes for which it is being investigated are prohibited. The FDA has a currently pending proposed rule that authorizes IRBs to waive some or all elements of informed consent. And in this guidance document, the FDA reiterated that it does not intend to object to an IRB waiving certain elements of informed consent or the requirement to obtain an informed consent in certain minimal risk clinical investigations under that guidance, despite the fact that that guidance is still pending and proposed. The guidance also outlines the basic elements of informed consent, including additional and recommended elements. As you're aware, certain trials must also include a statement that the trial will be listed on clinicaltrials.gov. The guidance also describes appropriate documentation of informed consent, which generally includes a written consent form, whether in long form or short form, that has been approved by the IRB and that is signed and dated by the subject or the authorized representative of the subject. The guidance also provides that such consent may be oral for certain types of minimal risk studies. The guidance, in addition, specifies that if the short form informed consent is used, the IRB must approve a written summary of information that will be provided orally to the subject. The guidance also addresses the responsibilities of sponsors, investigators, and IRBs in the informed consent process. and includes a number of frequently asked questions, including FAQs regarding enrolling different types of subjects, including children, non-English speakers, subjects with low literacy or numeracy, disabled subjects, and subjects with impaired consent capacity. Medical device research personnel should review the updated guidance and ensure that informed consents used in their current trials comply with the new and finalized guidance. On August 15th, the FDA posted a warning letter issued to Integra Life Sciences Corporation on July 17th. The letter addresses certain alleged quality system regulation deficiencies arising from an alleged failure to comply with certain good manufacturing practice requirements in connection with Integra's manufacture of collagen-based medical devices for wound care. The alleged deficiencies include storing non-sterile products with sterile products, corrective and preventive action procedural deficiencies, and concerns regarding bacterial endotoxin testing validation. As we've talked about in prior weeks, these types of warning letters are unfortunately fairly common in the medical device industry, and medical device manufacturers should ensure that their quality system personnel are familiar with the myriad of requirements under the quality system regulation. On August 11th, the FDA issued guidance regarding off-the-shelf software used in medical devices. This guidance describes the recommended documentation that sponsors should include in pre-market submissions that include off-the-shelf software. It also categorizes documentation requirements into two categories: basic or enhanced documentation, depending on the risk that the device software functions present in the context of the device's intended use. On August 8th, Texas Office of the Attorney General's Civil Medicaid Fraud Division settled an enforcement action for $42.7 million under the Texas Medicaid Fraud Prevention Act against a number of major pharmaceutical manufacturers. The settlement resolves allegations that the manufacturers provided nursing and reimbursement services to Texas Medicaid providers for certain pharmaceutical drugs and paid clinical nurse educators to refer or recommend a drug to providers. While medical device and pharmaceutical companies have a bona fide interest in educating patients regarding their products, improperly structured nurse educator programs may expose manufacturers to significant liability under anti-bribery and anti-fraud laws, including the federal anti-kickback statute and similar state laws. Generally, such programs should focus on educating patients regarding the manufacturer's products and not provide free items or services to or on behalf of ordering providers or facilities. Such programs should not provide free services that have independent value or that are otherwise the responsibility of a practice or other healthcare provider, such as providing medical or administrative services on behalf of a provider. When such programs include care coordination or other value-based services, they present unique risks to pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers. Specifically, the Office of Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services a few years ago adopted value-based enterprise safe harbors of the federal anti-kickback statute to cover the provision of care coordination and other value-based services. However, when the OIG adopted these safe harbors, it expressly excluded protection for medical device and pharmaceutical manufacturers, except for medical device companies in a very limited role of providing digital health technology. Accordingly, medical device manufacturers, as well as pharmaceutical manufacturers, must carefully structure patient education programs to avoid violating anti-bribery and anti-fraud laws. On August 7th, Evoke Neuroscience and its founder, David Hagedorn, agreed to pay $445,000 to resolve alleged False Claims Act violation for promoting the use of false billing codes for their EVOX brain health device. The EVOX device is a helmet with electrodes that purports to test certain brain functions. From January of 2013 through May of 2021, Evoke and Dr. Hagedorn allegedly promoted the use of 6 billing codes for Medicare reimbursement to healthcare providers for the use of the device. The government contends that the promoted codes were inappropriate because the codes require a longer testing time, a specialized environment, i.e. the rendition of these services in a soundproof or dark room, and that the services could only be provided by a relevant specialist. Under the False Claims Act, the medical device manufacturer may be liable for causing their customers to submit false claims to the federal government, particularly if they provide erroneous billing or coding advice to their customers. Due to the significant per-claim penalties under the Federal False Claims Act, which are currently over $13,000 to $27,000 per claim, medical device companies should exercise significant caution in providing billing and coding advice to their customers. Billing, coding, and coverage requirements vary significantly from payer to payer and may change without warning. Accordingly, medical device companies should consider hiring billing and coding experts to ensure that any billing or coding advice provided to their customers is accurate. In addition, medical device manufacturers should carefully constrain the individual personnel who are authorized to provide billing and coding advice to their customers. Unfortunately, we've seen many times where sales representatives may provide inaccurate or erroneous billing and coding advice to customers, and according manufacturers should carefully consider who at the medical device manufacturer is authorized to provide billing and coding advice to their customers. Thank you for joining me this week for Medical Device Legal News. I'm Sam Bernstein, a partner in Marbarowitz Healthcare Group. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Sophie Morris, for helping to make today's program possible. I look forward to seeing you next time.